Hi, I'm Revd David Peterson, and I just want to share a reflection with you today on Holy Wednesday for Holy Week on the mindset of Jesus Christ. So just looking at Matthew chapter 26 from verses 6 to 15, and it reads, "And when Jesus was in Bethany at the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him having an alabaster flask of very costly, fragrant oil. And she poured it on his head, and as he sat at the table. But when his disciples saw it, they were indignant, saying, 'Why this waste? For this fragrant oil might have been sold for much and given to the poor.' But when Jesus was aware of it, he said to them, 'Why do you trouble the woman? For she has done a good work for me. For you have the poor with you always, but me you do not have always. For in pouring this fragrant oil on my body, she did it for my burial. Assuredly, I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done will also be told as a memorial to her.' Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, 'What are you willing to give me if I deliver him to you?' And they counted out to him 30 pieces of silver." Now, looking at this passage of scripture, a lot of theologians would agree that this is what took place on Wednesday of Holy Week. This was the beginning of the betrayal, hence why some people call it Spy Wednesday. Some people call it Living Space Wednesday. Some people call it Great Wednesday, but I just call it Holy Wednesday as is a part of Holy Week. So looking at this passage of scripture, we want to focus on the mindset of Christ. We see that this woman comes with this expensive oil, this expensive perfume. She breaks it and she pours it on the head of Christ and she anoints him. You know, people in the room are angry and upset, saying, "Oh my goodness, that oil was so expensive. If it was today, in our day and age, it probably would have been a big bottle of perfume, maybe Gucci or Versace or Louis Vuitton, I don't know, some kind of expensive perfume." And she poured it on the head of Jesus. And the disciples said she could have used that perfume, sold it, and given the money to the poor. And it's interesting because when you look at how this is depicted in the Gospel of John, the Gospel writer in John says that Judas actually said that she could have given the money to the poor because he actually cared more about how expensive it was than he actually cared about the poor. So he was saying this as an excuse because in the Gospel of John, it actually says that he was stealing money from the treasury pot and basically taking money from the offertory plate. So their focus wasn't on helping poor people. They were just shocked at how expensive it was, and she wasted it all on Jesus. But the mindset that Jesus had in this whole time of confusion, someone just coming in, you know, there's loads of people in the room, she's just doing this strange, outrageous act with very, very expensive perfume. He stayed focused on what was happening spiritually, that this was a prophetic sign of what he was about to embark upon in fulfilling his destiny and fulfilling his purpose in setting us free from the clutches of sin and death. And Jesus even said, he gave a prophetic word at this time, and said, wherever the gospel is preached, the act that this woman has done will be like a memorial unto her. And it's true, as there was a depiction in all 4 gospels of this situation taking place. Jesus had a spiritual mindset to a physical situation. Jesus had a prophetic mindset to a situation that seemed, quite frankly, very awkward. Jesus had a mindset of focus, even though he was about to face the biggest trial of his life, even though he was about to come across the biggest mountain of his life, even though he was walking into his greatest challenge that he had ever faced. His mind was focused on the things of God. His mind was focused on fulfilling prophecy. And his mind was focused on the assignment that God had given him. And he said, this is not a time to focus on expensive perfume, but this is a time to see what God is doing in the midst of the confusion, to see what God was doing with this act of worship that this woman displayed before religious men.